This proof is asking me to prove that triangle ACD is congruent to triangle BCD. I'm going to start by highlighting those triangles so I can see where they are in my diagram. That's triangle ACD in yellow, and then in blue I will highlight triangle BCD. Now I have several methods for proving that triangles are congruent. So let's start with the given and mark up our diagram. The first given told me that AC was congruent to BC, so I'll mark that on my diagram using my tick marks. The second given stated that D is the midpoint of segment AB. If D is the midpoint, I know it's going to break segment AB into two congruent segments. So that tells me that segment AD will be congruent to segment BD. Now I need to look for something else, because just having two pairs of congruent sides is not enough to prove that those triangles are congruent. I do see that these two triangles share a common side, CD. I can mark that with an X and know that CD will be congruent to CD, and that's my reflexive property. Now what I have is three pairs of congruent sides, congruent for each triangle. Based on that, I can say that triangle ACD is congruent to triangle BCD. I will prove them congruent by method side, side, side. I've gone ahead and placed my givens in the proof, and one of my givens gave me one pair of congruent sides. So if you notice, next to step number 1, I marked that with an S in parentheses to remind myself that that's one pair of congruent sides. I'm now going to look at the fact that D is the midpoint of AB. Knowing that D is the midpoint, as I marked in my diagram, that tells me that segment AD is congruent to segment BD. My reason for that is really the definition of a midpoint, that a midpoint gives me two congruent segments. Now I want to go to the fact where my third congruent side, my third pair, is the fact that I have that CD is congruent to CD. That reason is going to be reflexive. Any segment or any angle is congruent to itself. I also want to make sure I mark step 3 and 4 with an S, so I know it's my second and third pair of congruent sides. Now that I have all three pairs of congruent sides listed, I'm ready to do my final statement and state that triangle ACD is congruent to triangle BCD. And my reason is using the method side, 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 and I want to make sure I include the numbers where I got my sides, which was step 1, step 3, and step 4. And that's a proof proving two triangles congruent by the method side, side, side.